like the big palaver's the wrong word, but it's the only one I can think of. He's the captain now. This is his squad. It's his opportunity to really enhance his legacy, if you like. Given everything he's done with England, he now has the opportunity to do it with the Lions, and if he can.
Hello and welcome back to the Counter Sports Rugby Podcast. I'm your host Darren Timson, joined as usual for these Liam, Grice, and Kevin. And Liam, I imagine you're the happiest of the three of us because we're going to go through the British and Irish Lions squad, and there's been 2 Welsh players included in the squad. Grice, immediate reaction.
We did it. Let's go. The worst representation of Wales in the British and Irish Lions squad for 15 years, but
you can see him wearing his Wales
speaks
top.
Volumes of where Welsh rugby is at the moment, so I'm really not surprised.
Maybe it's payback for Gatland, basically just selecting only Welsh players.
So this is why there's so many Irish players in the squad. Okay, this makes sense.
Anyway, guys, happy to be back doing one of these. We obviously did the Six Nation podcast, but we haven't really been able to do a rugby one since. But in the last few hours, like I said, the British and Irish Lions, bloody hell, I can't say that word today. Squad has been announced by Andy Farrell, and although it took almost 45 minutes, we got there in the end. So just to recap on a little bit, if you're watching on YouTube, I'll put the full squad on the screen for you to see, but I'm not going to read it out because you don't want to hear that and I don't want to do it. But just as a recap, 2 Welsh players have been included, like I said, 15 Irish players, 6 backs, 9 forwards, 13 English, 5 back and 8 forwards, and then 8 Scottish, 5 backs and 3 forwards. So, Grice, you're closer to Scotland than you are to Ireland in the representation.
Someone said it's a good thing, someone said it's a bad thing.
So, just the big talking points, guys, from the announcement, I imagine, is obviously Itoje being announced as the captain, mainly due to Caelan Doris being unable to come due to his injury. Hansen, no Prendergast, no Owen Farrell, and then Henry Pollock replacing Caelan Doris in the wider squad. Kevin, I'll start with you. Pretty much the team I think we're all expecting, really, but maybe just a surprise at what he's gone for in the fly half positions.
Yeah, like you said, it's fairly sort of bang on. There's 1 or 2 little things you'd be like, oh, maybe that's slightly different, but there's no like, oh my god, there's no.
Yeah.
For instance, there's no Owen Farrell in this squad, which I maybe thought he was gonna do, not only because it's his son, but the fact that Sexton is now on the coaching staff, and the player most like Sexton in the last 5 years, 10 years even, who's not named Sexton, is Owen Farrell. So obviously that would have been a huge headline. He hasn't done that. He's gone for the 2 Finns and Marcus Smith. We imagine, obviously, we sort of spoke during the Six Nations about Marcus Smith going, because not only can he cover fly half, but he can also cover full back as well.
Yeah.
So that's no real surprise. The Doris injury, obviously, it was sort of after the Northampton-Leinster game, it was kind of said, right, the initial story was, look, he has a shoulder injury, he might need surgery, which might keep him out. And then as the sort of days went on, it was kind of like, no, he's done. He's done for the season. Yeah, he's done for the season, and which is a pity for him, because going into the Six Nations, he was probably front runner to be captain.
100%.
Now a lot has changed since the start of the Six Nations, and I think Itoje is probably the right choice. I'm looking across, like, who else really? Tuapoladu, Scotland captain, maybe. You could argue again someone like Jack Conan, but yeah, I think Itoje is the correct choice. So yeah, overall, fairly fairly what we expected. All right.
Grice, unfortunately, Jack Morgan wasn't made captain. Did that? Was that a little bit of a stinker after the good news of seeing two of them in?
I'm just happy we got two. No, I think Itoje is probably the smart choice for captain, all things considered, with everything that's gone on with the squad. He seems the most balanced in terms of how he leads the team. You know, he's going to be that vocal point. He's going to be shouting and screaming, I'm sure, but he brings a sort of calmness to him as well, both on and off the pitch, which is going to be important for these lot who will have to spend, well, a lot of time together, gel together, because a lot of them haven't been in a Lions squad before, and that's a really important aspect of the Lions team, is everybody getting along and being sort of one big family. And if you have that focal point like I told you can bring everybody together, the harmony in the squad can really lead to good results. So hopefully he can be that.
Just on the Welsh players, then I think we may as well start there. I think you were probably expecting Jack Morgan. I think that was probably the obvious one, but you were pressed to think that there wouldn't be another one. But as it is, Thomas Williams has been included in the squad. What's your immediate thoughts on that one? Is that a surprise for you, or were you kind of expecting that he could as well?
He was certainly in the conversation, and there's lots of competitions for every single position on the pitch, and I'm just happy to have another Welsh player in there, because like you said, I think Jack Morgan was pretty much dead on. You could see him making the squad, but just because he's been the only good player for us, I think it's fair to say.
So I didn't mean to laugh.
No, it's true. It is true that he's deserved a place in that squad above everybody else. Dewi Lake can maybe feel a bit aggrieved for not making the squad. I think he's been very good for us as well, but maybe he's just below the level of quality that Farrell wants for this team, and there's a lot of good players in his position as well. So I'm not too disappointed by only having two players in there. Thomas Williams will maybe not start, but can definitely make an impact when he's called upon. I'm sure he might play in the game against Argentina in Dublin before they head out, just so they can see sort of what he's made of, and then we'll go from there. But I expect Jack Morgan to be in and around the starting 15. Thomas Williams maybe not so sure.
Yeah, just before I move on, do you think, obviously considering where Welsh rugby was in the last British and Irish Lions tour, Jesus Christ, I really need to
really
sort
struggling to say that.
that took place in South Africa, and the strength of the squad then, and just coming into off the back of the Japan World Cup, going into the next World Cup. Do you think this is a low point for Welsh rugby, or do you think this is a point where you can say, well, there's only been two players included in this one, but we're going to make sure that there's going to be more in the next one? Is this like a wake-up call?
Yeah, if they play it right and spin it right, this should be the clack on the back of the head, if you like, that gives them the sort of impetus to really go about improving the game. Only having two representatives, one of them a conscientious choice in that squad, should be a big enough wake-up call to realise that I'm sure people do realise that we're in a really bad state at the moment, but like you said, it should give us the impetus to really go about improving the game, and some of that has started already. They've got the £50,000 budget on flowers that we were spending every year, so that's a step in the right direction. But a lot still has to change behind the scenes. Personnel has to change behind the scenes, and some of that has started. A lot more needs to happen, but I'm just happy with two. I don't think I could really ask for much more.
Kevin, going on to the real main contentious player that's missing, I suppose, the one that maybe many thought was going to be included because of Andy Farrell being the coach, and the way the last year was kind of gearing up for Prendergast, and then obviously going into the Six Nations. Are you surprised to see that he's not been included in the squad? Do you think maybe the performances of Finn Smith in the Six Nations compared to Prendergast's performances is what maybe tipped it?
Yeah, look, I think there's particularly in Ireland there's a very big narrative around Prendergast and Leinster and Ireland and every and I don't want to get into that, but I think if you look at it simply, he hasn't been good enough, and that's I think what is the main reason why he's not in the squad. It's clear that Farrell likes him. Like we've discussed about him drafting Prendergast in earlier than some would have thought in place of Crowley in the autumn. So, and obviously he started the Six Nations. So it's clear that Farrell wanted to, and Farrell obviously wasn't in charge of Ireland during the Six Nations because of this, but he definitely had an input. Like there's no point, lying about that. But after his performance in the big games, he was poor against France. And look at last weekend, he was really poor against Northampton. And his defense, we talked about it during the Six Nations, his defensive capabilities, his tackling is a massive hole in his game. Like he has great hands. He is he's a good player at, setting the lines and calling plays and what you want from your out half. But there are some glaring holes. He is still a young player. Having said that, Finn Smith is younger than him and he's been selected. But that is testament, like you said, to how Finn Smith played during the Six Nations. So it may not be the worst thing in the world for Prendergast to not go on this tour, because he's clearly not ready, I don't think, for this sort of level. And you look at the out halves, like we just went through them, you've the two Finns and then you've Marcus Smith. I mean, you also have, we mentioned Owen Farrell, George Ford is in there as another option. So he's probably behind all of these players. So to me, again, he would have been an interesting selection at the start of the year, if you didn't know what had happened and just basing off what he'd done in autumn and for Leinster. But I think for me, he can't really have any arguments as to say I should be ahead of all these players.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And I think, we do have to obviously make the point that young players go through, mature at different stages as well. Just because Finn Smith is maybe ahead of him now doesn't mean that this is over for Prendergast. He's still a young player. But do you just really put it down to it is Finn Smith has had a better year potentially, and he's just probably just that bit ahead in his development over Prendergast right now?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And again, this isn't a development tour. They're going down there to win, and I think you can make arguments as to why, if you're sort of gambling on the potential and the upside, but this tour is there. This tour is there to be won. They want to win all three test games against Australia, and you need players who are ready and in form. And this is a sort of overall sort of wider point on the squad. I mean, we're going to have at least 10 players coming in. We've seen it every single tour with injury. There's always someone who's like holidaying around Australia at the time and is available to come in. Yeah. So just an overall point on the squad, he's obviously named this 38-man squad. Some of the names we're going to talk about who've missed out will probably get drafted in anyway. I don't think Prendergast, if two of the out halves go down, like I said, I'd expect George Ford and Owen Farrell to be ahead of him. But you never know. But yeah, I think I'm not surprised given how the last few months have gone.
On the wider squad, then, you just literally touched on it. Any other major misses for you in this one?
I wouldn't say it's a miss. It's the Mac Hansen over Darcy Graham is an interesting one. I really like Mac Hansen. I think when he's at his best, he's a game breaker. who can produce something. I think Darcy Graham is also a wonderful player as well. And I think this is where you're seeing the Farrell call. I made a joke before we start recording about Gatland always picking basically the entire Welsh 15 for his. But this is where, when you have these marginal calls, this is the thing with the Lions, you're always going to go with the lads you know, I think. So I'd imagine it was quite a marginal 50-50 decision. You're going to have people on the coaching staff who were backing Darcy Graham, people who were backing Matt Hansen, and it was just Farrell probably who said, right, I've worked with him for however long, I know his game, I'm more comfortable having him, which is fair enough. He's the coach. If it goes well, he can claim credit. If it doesn't, he'll have to bear that responsibility. But that's the only one. And you could, the Tua Paladu one, I mean, he was obviously injured for the entire Six Nations. It'd be interesting to see where he's at fitness-wise at the moment. And you could argue the same with Tyg Furlong, but I think regardless, you have those two lads in the squad anyway because of the quality that they have.
Can I jump in? Sorry.
Yeah, go
quickly.
for it.
I've thought of another. I'm just going to speak about Wales because it's all I can speak about, really. There's another player I may be surprised wasn't given more of a conversation to be in the squad, and that's Blair Murray. I think we spoke about versatility. He's quite versatile. He can play sort of anywhere across the back line, and given how bad we were or have been for ages, the fact he was able to sort of shine in that Wales squad and prove he can handle the pressure of being sort of mauled for 80 minutes consistently would have been something I'd like to see in the Lions squad. Maybe that's a little bit of Wales bias, but it's also, he gives Farrell a lot of options to where he wants to play and where he wants to bring him on, because he wouldn't start. I'm not saying he should start, but he'd have been a good young squad option to bring along with the squad and see if he can impact it in any way.
Yeah, fair enough. Kevin, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I think I agree. I think versatility is huge when it comes to these, and I think you could see it in his selection. So yeah, I think it's fair enough. And again, this is the thing with Lions squads. The tour is so long, too long. Almost as long as the fucking squad announcement was this afternoon. But so I think we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if we see literally all of the players that we've talked about missing out on this tour at some stage, if they're required.
Yeah, 100%. Before we get into, I suppose, an almost combined 15, because apparently you guys have the exact same players apart from maybe one or two. But when you look at the squad, and this goes for both of you really, which players are you thinking really need to make an impact for themselves in this coming tour, who will be maybe a little bit more motivated to really show the world, I suppose, what they actually can do, and maybe they're at nation teams as well?
I think the obvious one is Itoje. Like the big, palaver's the wrong word, but it's the only one I can think of. He's the captain now. This is his squad. It's his opportunity to really enhance his legacy, if you like. Given everything he's done with England, he now has the opportunity to do it with the Lions. And if he can get this Lions side winning and playing well, I don't think we've won in Australia for ages. So results down there would help sort of cement his legacy as a great captain for the Lions. There's a lot of pressure that comes with it, but I think Itoje's the sort of character that can deal with it well and sort of likes the pressure, and that's why he was a good pick for captain. But this is really his tour now, if you like, to make his stamp and cement his legacy.
Yeah, for sure. And you can imagine, because how close England I think are getting to where they want to be as a nation as well. If they go into the next few years with Nara Itoje as a winning Lions captain, then that'll be huge for them, won't it?
Yeah, exactly. It just, you said, introducing the question, it furthers their ambitions at country level as well as Lions level. And if he can be the star figure of the Lions squad. All the players in that England team will look to him and want to play better for him, unfortunately.
Kevin, is there any names that stand out to you?
I wouldn't say individual names. I'm going to go for the Leinster-Ireland players in particular, considering what happened last weekend, considering what's happened over the last 4 seasons, basically, where they've basically
bottled it.
Been accused of bottling it and choking, which I think definitely has some merit. And you're looking at lads like Sheehan, Furlong, James Ryan, Jack Conan, Gibson Park, James. Like, these guys obviously have had success with Ireland. Not this year, because again, we documented it during the Six Nations Day. They got worse as the tournament went on. They've had the Rugby World Cup quarterfinal defeat again. They have failed to deliver the one trophy that Leinster are gunning for over the past 4 or 5 years. They'll want to prove that they still belong at this level, and they can get over the line again. And because I'd say a lot of fans from other nations and pundits may be thinking, well, they're actually on the downward spiral, so why are we selecting these guys? They've proven that they bottle it in big moments, and the only reason they're in there is because Farrell is the coach. So I think it's huge for some of these lads to prove that they not only, we know that they are good players, but sometimes that's not enough. And you need to be able to show you can do it in the critical moments, which they have occasionally. I say they won 2 Six Nations in a row, and one was the Slam. So they know what it is to win, but the last year or so has been tough. And maybe this is the perfect remedy to go down there, get a series win where you play a big part of it. You're the most, you have the most representation across the 4 countries. So, I mean, if you're not motivated by that, then good luck.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
And I'm sorry, can I latch on to that point again?
Go for it.
It's
latch away.
I'm gonna ring the Wales alarm again because I'm speaking about them, but it's sort of a similar point to what you've made about these Leinster players. There's 2 Wales representatives in this team, and this is the opportunity, sort of like those players, but in a different scenario where you've got the backing. There's 2 players that have the backing of the whole of Wales to show that we're not as big of a joke as everybody thinks we are, that we do have some quality when we can deliver. And Thomas Williams, I'm sure, will make an impact, but Jack Morgan is the one for me that has the best chance of starting out the 2. So he's the one who's, from my perspective especially, and I'm sure a lot of Wales fans, our hopes are pinned on of really showing what he's capable of in a team with a lot of Irish players and a lot of English players who are at the top level of rugby, and Wales necessarily aren't. So if them 2, especially Jack, can have a really good showing in this Lions tour, it sort of fills us with a bit of pride and shows there is a bit of hope maybe in the future for Welsh rugby if we can show what we're about in this Lions tour.
Yeah, and I imagine we'll get on to whether Jack Morgan's going to be in the squad or not in a few minutes. But I just wanted to add some context to what Kevin was saying there with the Leinster squad. If you don't know, they've finished runner-up in the Champions Cup 4 times in the last 6 seasons. And ever since the URC basically became the URC, including the South African teams, they've essentially dominated the league phase and then crumbled in the knockout phases as well, and not even making the final as of yet, since it's been the URC. So I think that's just enforcing Kevin's point there about Leinster, that they've shown they've exploded early on in seasons, I think is fair to say, as a club. But then when it comes to the back end, am I right, Kevin, in saying that they kind of just fall apart? Similar to, I suppose, Ireland in a World Cup, they look to be the best team in the competition, and then when it comes to the quarterfinal, it doesn't quite go as planned. Shall we get on to the squad then?
Take it away,
the
Kevin.
Squad or the first 15?
The first 15. The first 15.
I was like, what have we been doing?
What have we been doing? Yeah. The first 15 starting With the forwards, because the backs have the controversial pick, I suppose.
Right. So, just for context here, you said about 5 minutes before we started recording, do a 15. So
This is rushed.
this is completely off the dome.
Hey, well, the squad was only announced
I thought
half an hour ago.
like the Cardinals in the Vatican, I was going to have another day before the white smoke was coming out of the chimney, but no, white smoke is coming now. Right, here we go. So my front row, I've gone with Ellis Genge, Dan Sheehan, and Tyg Furlong.
Yeah.
My second row, I've gone with Maro Itoje, captain, and Tyg Byrne.
Yep.
And then my back row, which I think the options in the back row are really good. And I made a quick last minute change. And this is where my sort of thing comes into it. We haven't said the word bolter yet, which is sacrilege when it comes to Lions talk. But here is my bolter. My back row is Tom Curry, Henry Pollock, and Jack Conan. I think Pollock, if you watch the Northampton Leinster game on Saturday, this fella is just incredible. And he's coming in momentum. He's only 20. It's funny, he has one England cap, and yet he's gone straight in my... I just think he's electric, absolutely electric. And there's a reason he was picked. Like, if you watch the video, like, he got the biggest reaction. Whether he's ready for it or not, I mean, there's only one way to find out. Stick him in there.
But there's 6 games to get him ready for it, though, isn't there?
Oh, I mean, Jesus Christ. You basically have half a season before they play the first fucking test. Anyway.
Well, hang on, Kevin.
What is the Lions if not a brilliant corporate exercise at the end of the day?
Well, exactly.
Was it the Emirates Airlines lines or something nonsense like that? Anyway, to the backs.
Well, Kevin, is this... Just quickly, is this where it's the forward line where the controversial decision was between the two of you, or is it in the back line?
This is where the only difference is between...
Was it the only difference?
I think so, yeah.
Have a guess what that difference was.
I don't think I disagree. I don't know where this... So, Henry Pollock is not in my team, and Jack Morgan is in mine. But that's...
So would you start Morgan at flanker rather than number 8?
Yeah.
You'd have Conan and Morgan in there.
I mean, Wales bias. I'm not going to say it's not.
No, that's fair. No, he is, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does start.
He's just a warrior, and we've seen it. I've seen it, especially with Wales. He just reaches another level when he's under immense pressure, and he's been under a lot of that over the last year or so.
Do you think he can show what he's truly capable of around world-class players?
Yeah, that's the other thing for me that I'm excited for this Lions tour, is he actually gets to play with somewhat competent players around him all of the time, and that'll really allow his quality to shine, because he's not having to do as much of the dirty work and the grinding work, and he's able to sort of play a bit more freely and show what he's about. So yeah, that's what I'm really excited for. So injury in the first game in Argentina, and he's ruled out the tour.
And then Henry Pollock comes in.
Like, yeah. I hate to say it, but someone is doing their cruise shit in that Argentina 100%. Game, because it always happens. Anyway, right, backs. Scrum half, I've gone for Jamison Gibson Park. Fly half, this is where I was thinking. I've gone with Finn Russell.
Oh, you haven't changed.
Look, he's the most experienced one out of the 3 named. He has that little bit of flair. I still don't fully trust him with anything, but
just before you carry on, do you think Marcus Smith has dropped to the 3rd option for the fly half, given Finn Smith's performances?
Yeah, I think he's the 3rd option, and again, like I mentioned, he's been selected because of his versatility as well. So you basically have 2.5 fly halves. Yeah, no, look, if Marcus Smith was to start a test game, you wouldn't feel bad about it. You know what I mean? So my centre pairing is also Scottish. I've gone for Tuipulotu and Hugh Jones,
Yeah.
and that's why that's why I've also sort of put Russell in, just this sort of relationship between the three Scottish players there. And then for the back three, I've gone James Lowe ahead of Duhan van der Merwe because I think he's better. I've gone for Tommy. Well, I do. I think he is better.
It's just the way you said it.
Yeah. Unless Duhan van der Merwe is playing against England, I feel like he does nothing. You know, does that make sense? Tommy Freeman on the other wing again. Watched the Leinster Northampton. He was brilliant, pace, everything. And then tough call of fullback. I like Andy Farrell, proud Irishman. I'm going Hugo Keenan over Blair Kinghorn. I think that's a very sort of, it's a very tight call, but there are only three things certain in life: death, taxes, and Hugo Keenan under a high ball. So that is my Lions 15.
We have differed with
test.
two then, because I'd have Van der Merwe and Kinghorn. But like you said, it's a very tight decision that it could really just go either way, and it depends. Probably just depends how Farrell wakes up on the day and goes, "Yeah, go on, I'll pick it."
Yeah, you'd imagine that pretty much all three would get good chances as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
they're not just going to roll with Keenan for the whole time. Like, they are going to try other options as well, because I suppose that's the whole point of playing 20 games before the actual tests happen. You know, to figure out the team. So I suppose we may as well call that a combined 15 from the pair.
Sure.
3 changes from me, but that's it's good enough.
I'll give you Jack Morgan if you give me Hugo Keenan.
Okay, we'll do a deal.
Oh, brilliant. There we go. So obviously the test gets started in Argentina on the 20th of June. So that's when the tour kicks off, and then they go down to Australia on the 28th. In that first game, do you think he'll play the 11 he wants to play in the tests, or do you think he'll go maybe some of the more fringe players and just kind of like roll them out and see what they can do?
Yeah, I think it's the opportunity for him to, because I think he already has his 15 in his head. I think if he's smart, he already knows who's playing that first test match. This is the opportunity, as we've been saying, there's 1,200 games before the series actually starts, so it's the opportunity for him to, some of these fringe players, give them the opportunity to see how they perform under the pressure of playing for the British and Irish Lions, and really see how they compare to maybe what he thinks his 15 will be in his head. And if there's 1 or 2 surprises, or more likely 1 or 2 injuries, he can adjust his starting 15 for the first test.
Kevin, is there anyone? I know you said you didn't want to go anyone in particular, but do you think there would be someone to play in the Argentinian game that might put, like Grice says, he probably does have his 15 already in his head, Andy Farrell, but do you think there is a couple of players that he might not have maybe given much thought until that game comes around? Obviously, we won't know until that game does come around, but speaking now, do you think there is anyone that can really throw a spanner in the works there?
You see, it's strange, isn't it? Because again, it's right at the end of the season, so lads might be carrying knocks from the end of the season coming into that Argentina game, and then we'll just sort of use the 3 years before the first test to sort of get fit.
Because longer and longer every time.
Yeah, look, I think again, I'm going to mention Pollock again. If he is my sort of bolter wild card for the starting 15 in the first test, I think if he plays in that Argentina game and again lights it up like he has done recently, then the a word usually say for England World Cup campaigns, the clamour for Henry Pollock to get into the starting 15 will be huge. So yeah, I'm gonna go with him again. He's just great to watch.
Well, that seems like a good place to end, unless there's anything more you guys want to mention on the announcement.
I'm all good.
I mean, the whole thing was just nonsense. Just put out a graphic. I don't care.
Yeah.
Stop it. Like, stop stop trying to be Gianni Infantino and Alexander Shevrin. Just, I don't care. Just put a graphic out.
Yeah, well said. Or we have Twitter for a reason, or X as it's called.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, we'll come back for the Irish Lions when the tour gets underway. We might do an end of rugby season podcast. I think we have a little bit of space to maybe fit something in, so we might, but I'm not going to make any promises on that one. On the YouTube, there is also a football video that I put out about Trent Alexander-Arnold and Liverpool. I know this is a rugby podcast, so I imagine that most people listening to this would not care, but if you do, then go check that one out. It just looks at how Trent will be replaced, well, how I think Trent could be replaced in the Liverpool team going into next season. So please click the link on your screen there if you're interested. But if not, please like, comment, and subscribe as well if you enjoyed the video. And we'll be back very shortly and next week to go over some more stuff in the football world, I imagine. But thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and goodbye.